So let's dive into one of the biggest questions there is, one that gets right to the heart of everything. How did you become you?
No, I mean really stop and think about it for a second. How did all the different pieces of your personality, the way you handle relationships, your whole sense of self, how did it all click together? Well, today we're going to pull out the map and take a journey through our social and emotional development to try and figure that out.
All right, so our story, it doesn't just begin inside our own heads. It starts with the world we're born into. You can think of that environment as the first blueprint, the initial design for our entire social life.
And this is a really cool way to visualize it. A psychologist named Urie Bronfenbrenner came up with this idea that our development happens inside these nested systems, kind of like those Russian stacking dolls. Right there in the middle, that's you. But you're surrounded by all these layers of influence that shape who you become.
Okay, so let's break that down real quick. The microsystem, that's your immediate world, your family, your school, your close friends. The mesosystem is how those parts connect, like when your parents talk to your teachers. The exosystem is stuff that affects you indirectly, like your parents' job stress. Then you've got the macrosystem, which is your whole culture. And finally, the chronosystem, which is just the element of time and all the big life events that happen along the way.
So, inside that very first circle, that microsystem, we form our first and, honestly, our most important relationships. And I mean, these are the absolute building blocks for everything. And I mean everything that comes later.
And this experiment just says it all, doesn't it? In these really famous studies, Harry Harlow found that baby monkeys would choose a soft cloth mother that had no food over a wire mother that actually gave them milk. The lesson here was huge. We are hardwired for comfort, for physical contact, for security. It's not just about getting fed. And when that need for comfort and safety is met again and again, it creates something called secure attachment. This is the ideal. It's this healthy, trusting bond that basically tells a kid, hey, the world is a safe place and you can count on people. It becomes the foundation for everything.
But, what happens if that bond isn't so solid? Well, we see a few other patterns emerge. You might get an avoidance style, where someone is just really uncomfortable with closeness. Or an anxious style, where they desperately want to be close but are terrified of being rejected. And then there's a disorganized style, which can lead to some really confusing and unpredictable behaviors.
And of course, parenting plays a massive role in this. You've got the authoritarian style, super strict, lots of rules, very my way or the highway. Then on the other end, you have the permissive style, very few rules, more like being a friend than a parent. But the one that's most often linked to that secure attachment is the authoritative style. It's that sweet spot, a balance of setting clear rules, but also being warm, listening, and communicating.
Okay, so let's fast forward a bit. How does all this early stuff build into the teenage years? Well, that's a time that is pretty much defined by one huge, all-consuming challenge: figuring out who on earth you are.
And to really get a handle on this, we got to talk about a guy named Erik Erikson. He had this amazing idea that our whole lives are basically a series of 8 social challenges, or quests, if you will, that we have to work through in order to grow.
And here it is. This is his roadmap for our whole life. You can see it starts with trust versus mistrust as a baby. Hey, that sounds a lot like attachment, right? It all connects. It moves through all these key stages, but the big one we're going to focus on right now, the main event for teenagers, is that one right there: identity versus role confusion.
So this is it. This is the central conflict of the teenage years. On one side, you've got successfully forming a strong sense of identity. You know who you are, what you believe in. But on the other side, there's role confusion. That feeling of being totally lost, not sure about your goals, your values, or where you even fit in. Does that feeling sound familiar to anyone? I think we've all been there. Well, that classic teenage paranoia actually has a name. Psychologists call it the imaginary audience. It's this deep-seated belief that you're on a stage and everyone is watching your every move.
And that goes perfectly with this other idea, the personal fable. This is that powerful feeling that you are completely unique and special, that no one has ever felt the way you feel right now. It's also what makes you feel invincible, that bad things only happen to other people. It's a big driver of teenage risk-taking.
But let's be real. The journey doesn't just stop when you get your diploma. The quests for who you are and how you connect with others, they just get more complicated as we move into adulthood.
And here is where it all comes full circle. Remember that attachment style we talked about, the one you formed as a little kid? Well, guess what? It doesn't just vanish. It often becomes the unconscious blueprint, the default setting for how you approach your romantic relationships as an adult.
And according to Erikson, that leads us to the next big quest: intimacy versus isolation. So once you've figured out who you are, the next challenge is, can you share that self with someone else? Can you form a really deep, loving partnership? Or do you end up feeling disconnected and alone?
Now, just to make things more interesting, while you're trying to figure all that out, society adds another layer of pressure, this social clock. This is that unspoken cultural timer that's always ticking, telling you when you're supposed to get married, have kids, get that promotion. It can be a really powerful force.
And the quests keep coming. As we get into middle adulthood, we face the challenge of generativity, this deep need to contribute something to the world that will outlast us. And then finally, in late adulthood, it's about integrity versus despair, where we look back on our lives and either feel a sense of wholeness and fulfillment or one of regret.
Phew. Okay, so after that whirlwind tour through the entire human lifespan, let's just pause for a second and think about what this all means for our own story.
When you put it all together, it's pretty clear that who we are isn't some fixed point. It's a continuous, unfolding story. It's shaped by the world around us, it's built on the foundation of our first bonds, and it's defined by this lifelong search for who we are, how we connect, and what it all means.
And that brings us right back to you. So, after seeing this whole map laid out, from learning to trust all the way to looking back with integrity, it leaves us with one last thought. Where are you on this journey right now? What is the big quest that you're facing today?